Hello everyone. Today we are doing a tutorial on stock valuation. We want to understand more so that as an investor, if you want to invest in an organization, if you want to buy shares in an organization, what are the things that you have to look for? In stock, or let's say shares, that is equity financing. We have a preference shareholder and ordinary shareholder. Every organization pays the preference shareholder before the ordinary shareholder. So in economics, we say that the ordinary shareholder is a residual claimant, meaning that before you, the ordinary shareholder, be paid, we have to pay the creditors, like bondholders. Bondholders are creditors to the organization. So before the organization or the entity will pay shareholders, they have to settle with the bondholders. Then after preference shareholders, before they consider the ordinary shareholder. And the reward for holding shares in an organization is called dividend. So in stock valuation, we consider if, let's say, Ama wants to buy shares in an organization, wants to buy 10 shares, wants to buy 1 share. What is the monetary value that Ama will give to that 1 share in that particular entity? Ama will have to consider how payments of dividend are being made in the organization. So we want to say that before you value stock in an organization, you consider the dividend payment. But sometimes some of the organizations don't pay dividend for 5 years, 10 years. And some organizations too, with every 5 years or every 10 years, they increase the dividend payment with constant growth rates. So we have to look at all this in computing your stock, the price for the stock. Now let's take an example. Let's say one period valuation. One period valuation. That is, we say that Ama buys or Ama purchase shares in entity X or organization X and anticipate that next year she will sell the shares to another person. So if Ama is willing to buy shares in that particular company today, how much will she be willing to pay for? Looking at how the organization is going to pay dividend tomorrow, that's next year, or how the organization paid dividend last year. So in terms of that, we have dividend that they paid, let's say this year. This the year that Ama wants to purchase the shares. And this particular year, company X paid dividend of, let's say, D0. D0. And this is the particular year that Ama wants to buy the shares in the organization. So the price that Ama wants to pay for is, let's say, P0. That is today, the price that Ama wants to pay. Now, the organization can say that, okay, next year we will increase the dividend by 2%. So it means that the dividend in that particular organization is going to increase by 2%. That is the growth rate of what? Dividend. So that will be Jane. And we are saying that, let's say that Jane is 2%. Let's assume that the dividend that the organization paid today is 5 cedis. The dividend that the organization pay today is 5 cedis. Now, for the price, we don't know. But when in business or in economics, everything goes with risk. You buy shares in an organization. There's a certainty or uncertainty that the organization may not pay dividend, may not get profit, because you, the shareholder, you are praying that the organization earns more profit so that they can pay you dividend. So what if they don't get any profit? It means that they are not going to give you any benefit or any dividend. So it means that it goes with what? Risk. And risk can come in, we have risk-free and market risk premium. So let's say the return on that particular shares is, let's say, RE. Let's say that one is what? 5%. So now we are going to compute the price of the shares that AMA will pay today. So the price of that becomes P0. And we have to discount everything. So P0, which is equal to D0 into bracket 1 plus the growth rate, all divided by the return on that. And here we are representing the return on the shares with what? RE. That is return on what? Equity. Minus the growth rate. So let's substitute everything into the formula. Then we have P0. So from here. So P0 is equal to, now D0 is 5 cedis. D0 is 5 cedis. So 5 into bracket 1 plus 2%, which is 0.02. 1 plus 0.02. All divided by 5%, which is 0.05, minus 2%, which is 0.02. 0.05 minus 0.02. So when you compute this, then it gives you the price that AMA will pay for the shares today. This is one period. Now, here you were given the growth rate. So this is how you go about it. Now, let's assume that they give you just they give you the dividend payments. So the organization tells you, read about the organization, and it tells you that the company is going to pay dividend next year to be, let's see, 2 cedis. So D1 is equal to 2 cedis. Now the return on that particular asset, which is equity or shares, it tells you to be 5%. What is the price of that? What is the price of the shares? How much will the person pay for giving you this particular information? This is future. Don't forget about your time value of money. 0, 1, 2, then continues. Now, this is today. This is next year. next 2 years. Now, the organization is saying that, so here will be what? D0, and here will be what? D1, here will be what? D2. Now, the organization is saying that they are going to pay dividend next year, 2 cedis. And the return on that particular asset, which is shares, equity, is 5%. So it means that you have to discount it, because you are going to receive this in the future. So if you are to discount it to know how much you have to pay for, then P0 is equal to the dividend next year. And you know that D0 is equal to D1 is equal to D0 into bracket 1 plus G. So in case you are not given D1 but D0 and giving you the growth rate, this is how you go about it. But here they gave us D1, that is dividend for next year. So it means that P0 is equal to D1. You don't have to bring in into bracket 1 plus the growth rate, because we use that to compute the next dividend. But here the future one is given to us. So straightforward, you just come and put here D1 into bracket, and you know the discount factor. Once you are given the return on that, then the discount factor becomes what? 1 plus RE. Then you use this to compute the price of the stock or the shares for just 1 period. So it means that from here, then P0 is equal to 2 divided by 1 plus 0.05. This is the discount factor. You have to discount it to know how much you have to pay for. Now, sometimes you buy a shares in an organization, then you anticipate that you are going to sell the shares for the next 5 years, the next 6 years. You can use the time value to calculate everything. But sometimes it becomes a challenge when you buy the shares for perpetuity. Then becomes a challenge. Let's take an example for us to understand the calculations better. Now, you buy shares in an organization, then you want to hold it for, let's say, 4 years, 5 years, or 6 years. So it means that every year you are going to receive dividend for the first year, the second year, the third year, the fourth year, and let's say the fifth year, you are going to sell that shares. But when you sell the shares for 5th year, you will receive the price of that. The selling price, you will receive it, plus the dividend of that. But the 6th year, you are not going to enjoy, because by then you have give the ownership to someone. So now, let's take a scenario where someone holds shares in an organization for more than 2 or 3 years. For example, Adwa Menu buys a shares in you want to buy a shares in an organization. Then the organization will pay dividend for first year. Please make sure always you go with your time value. Time value of money is very, very important over here. Now, Adwa Mansa want to know the price of the shares today. That is P0. But the organization will pay dividend for first year to be 2 cedis. The dividend that they will pay for the second year is 3 cedis. The dividend that they will pay for the third year is 5 cedis. Then they will pay another dividend for fourth year to be 7 cedis. Then from fifth year, dividend will grow by 2%. Now, Amma want to know the price that she will pay for that particular shares. Giving you this information. To discount everything, giving you all this information, then the return on that asset, that is RE, is let's say 5%. We like 5%. We want to make it simple for us to understand, because the calculation is very, very important. If you don't understand the calculation, how are you going to advise someone? Because as a monetary economist, you should know more about stock valuation and how to advise people on that. Now let's continue. Now it means that you have first year, second year, third year, fourth year, and fifth year. So it means that over here D5 is equal to D4 into bracket 1 plus G. And over here, it gives you 7 into bracket 1 plus 2%. I hope you are fine. Yes. To know the price of this stock, which is P0, is equal to, you have to discount everything. So D1 divided by 1 plus RE raised the power 1, because it's first year, plus D2 1 plus RE raised the power 2, plus D3 1 plus RE raised the power 3, plus D4 divided by 1 plus RE raised the power 4, plus P4 1 plus RE raised the power 4. I'm sure you are confused over here, because we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But I didn't add D5. I want to let me make things clear over here. Now, in stock valuation, when we're doing one period, you realize that P0 is equal to D1 divided by 1 plus RE, or RE minus G. So it means that now this is the income that when Amma purchased the shares, she's going to receive over the years. But Amma will sell the shares at year 4, at the end of year 4. So at the end of the year 4, Amma is going to receive something we call P4. That is the selling price of the stock at the the 4th year. But when you sell, you have to discount it to the present, because that is the future income. So we want to know how that money will be at this moment. So But because Amma is not going to receive the dividend for the 5th year, but the dividend for the 5th year is going to help Amma to know how she's going to sell the stock at year 4. So now, when you are given such a question, this is how you go about it. You take the dividend for the 1st year, because when you buy the shares today, next year when they are paying dividend, you are back, you will receive some. So that will be D1 over here. You discount it, 1 plus RE, that is the return on that asset, which is equity. That is why I'm representing it by RE, plus D2 divided by 1 plus RE raised to the power 2 plus D3. And over here, you know D3. This will be what? D3. And D3, they are giving you dividend of what? 5. They come and put the 5 here. Divided by 1 plus RE. And RE here is what? 5%, which is 0.05 raised to the power 3. Then plus D4, which is 1 plus RE. And you know here D4 is what? 7. So you put 7 here, divided by 1 plus RE, which is 5%. You put it over here. Now, when you come to P4, then P4 is equal to P4 is equal to D5 divided by, once the question says that from D5, the organization, from D4, the organization is going to what? Increase the dividend with a constant growth rate of 2%. So to know D5 is equal to D4 into brackets 1 plus G. So if you are able to get D5, then to get P4 is very, very simple. Then you take D5, then you divide it by RE minus G. RE minus G. So when you get P4, then you come and put that value over here. Then you discount it. 1 plus RE raised to the power 4. Then you sum everything. That gives you how much Amma will pay for the shares today. But as I was saying, you buy shares in an organization, then for perpetuity, you expect it to last for, let's say, 20 years, some people 30, 35. Some people use this as their pension scheme. So then how are you going to, do your calculation? It's very, very simple. You are going to use Gordon growth model. The Gordon growth model because you're going to hold the shares for a very long time, then we assume that the selling price of the future and the dividend payment is going to be the same. And so therefore, the price of the stock becomes very long time, huge number. T starting from 1. dt divided by 1 plus RE raised to the power T. Then it becomes very, very simple for you. Because here we assume that because it's a very long time, the dividend payment and the selling price will be almost the same. So the formula becomes this, which is very, very simple. I hope you understand it. Now, let's take a question. Let's take a question. As I was saying, the return on the asset, we have something we call risk-free. And we have something we call, this is 1. 2 is market risk premium. Market risk premium. When you take Government of Ghana Treasury bill, the interest rate on that is risk-free. Why risk-free? Government does not die. So it means that when you lend to the government, you are sure that you get your money back. So that is risk-free. But let's say you invest in an organization, then the organization gives you a return. You know, it has something we call risk. Risk in a sense that the company can default in the payments, can default in paying dividend to you. The company can run into losses. In such scenario, you are not going to receive any benefit. You are not going to receive any dividend. So, to determine the return on assets, we add the risk-free and the market risk premium to get the return on the equity. So let's take an example. Organization anticipate to pay dividend next year, D1, to be 6 cedis. And the risk-free, let's say the risk-free is what? RF is equal to 2%. Risk-free is 2%. Then the market risk premium, that is MRP, is equal to 3%. Then we ask you, if the organization is selling the stock for 200 cedis, will you buy? Giving you this information, and they are saying that they are going to sell the shares to you for 200 cedis. Are you going to buy? Now the decision is, you have to do your own calculation, giving you the formula P0 is equal to D1 divided by RE minus G. Now, here you are not given RE, but as I said earlier on, the return on equity, that is RE. RE is equal to RF plus MRP. RF is what? Risk-free. And MRP is market risk premium. When you add these two, it gives you what? The return on what? Equity. Now, this is what? 2%. And this is 3%. So when you add it, return on equity is what? 5%. Then you come and solve it. Then you compare this and that. If this one, let's say P0 star If the one that you calculated is greater than this, it means that it's good. It means they are selling the shares at a cheaper price. But if the one that you calculated is less than the one that they are selling, then it means that it's what? It's expensive. Then you don't go about it. You shouldn't buy. I hope you understand it. Yes. So now, let's take a question. A question from the slides. And I hope you can see it. So let me read it for you. It says a company needs 1,000 Ghana cedis to finance its activities. The firm can finance this expenditure either by bonds or equity. Interest rate on bonds is 10%. The company can earn 160 Ghana cedis in good years and 80 Ghana cedis in bad years. Assuming the firm faces 1/4 probability of good years. A. What will be the stream of returns on both bonds and equity if the company chooses the following financing options? 1. 100% equity financing. 2. 50% equity financing. 3. 20% equity financing. And 4. 0% equity financing. B. Estimate the equity risk associated with each option in A. C. An investor who wants to purchase a share in the company. Which financing option will make you purchase? Then you explain to the person. Now let's break the question down. The question is saying that a company needs 1,000 Ghana cedis. Ghana cedis to finance its activities, and the organization can finance this expenditure either by bonds or equity. And as we know, with bonds you pay interest, but with equity, no, you only pay the dividend to the shareholders. So they are saying that either you go with bonds or you go with what? Equity. But with bonds, so either equity or bonds. Bonds, you pay what? 10% interest rate. Now, the firm, the first part is the organization will earn 160 Ghana cedis in good years and 80 Ghana cedis in bad years. The organization faces 50-50. When you read the question in the slides, it's 50-50 probability. So now let's find, once we are given probability, now let's find the expected return of the organization. So return. Here we have our variable over here. We have our probability. And we have our return. Now, the variable, we have good years and bad years. So good and bad. And the question says that probability of what? 50-50. So it means that 50% chance for good and 50% chance for bad. So 0.5 for good and 0.5 for bad. And return for good is what? 160. And return for bad is what? 80. Now probability, when you sum out the probability, it should give you what? 1. And over here, when you sum it up, it gives you what? 1. So now, expectation, that is the mean. So on average, the firm earns what? That's what we are coming to compute. I hope you are following. Okay, now let's continue. Let's say expected return. Let me call it RE. Expected return of the company is equal to summation of what? RI times PI. I starting from 1. So all that we are doing over here is, when you take probability for R, then you multiply it by this. Then you take this, then you multiply by this, then you sum it together. So it means that you are going to have 0.5 times 1 Ghana cedis plus 0.5 times 80 Ghana cedis. And our mathematicians will give us, now this gives us what? 80. And this gives us what? 40. When you sum it up, it gives you what? 120. So we are saying that on average, the firm earns 120 Ghana cedis. Now, that is, let's go to the first part. The first part is saying that what will be the stream of returns for both equity and bonds. The first one is, if the firm decides to go by what? 100% equity financing. Please, let's break it down. When we say 100% equity financing, then it means that no bonds, only equity. So I'm going to clean this and I give you a table. I'm going to clean this, then gives you a table on how the equity and the bond is going to be. Now let's continue. But please put this one somewhere. The firm earns 120. So every year the firm is earning 120 on average. That is the expected return of the organization. Don't forget that if the firm decides to finance this activity by bonds, they are going to pay what? 10%. Don't forget about that. Now, we have equity over here. And we have bonds over here. I want to make it simple for you to understand. You know, we are in a quarantine time. People are worried. So if we don't break it down, people will die. I know we are in a quarantine, so make sure you eat. Please stay home, don't go out. And if you are not going to buy food or medicine, don't go out. This is not a time to visit friends or family members. Now let's continue. The first part is the firm decides to go 100% equity. So if the firm go 100% equity, then it means that let's represent the return on equity to be RE. Then the return on bonds to be what? RB. I hope you are following. Now, if the firm goes 100% equity, it means that 0% bonds, no bond. So what will be the return for the equity? All the expected return that the firm earns, the 120, all of them will be what? Will be equity. So the return on equity is equal to what? 120. I hope you are following. And if that is the case, no return for bonds. So return for bonds, RB, will be what? Will be 0. And because the firm goes 100% equity, no bonds, the firm is not paying any interest on that. Now, let's come to the second option. The second option is the firm goes 50% equity. So if the firm goes 50% equity, and for the firm needs 1,000 Ghana cedis. So if the firm goes 50 for equity, it means that equity that was what? 500. Then bonds will be what? Will be 500. And if 500 and you are paying interest rate on this to be 10%, it will be what? 50. Now, the firm received 120 as profit, and out of that, half is for equity, half is for bonds. So the return on equity will be what? 60 Ghana cedis. What will be, so the firm, if the firm goes 50% equity, then it tells you that the firm goes 50% bonds. 50% bonds. So the return on bond will be what? 60. But don't forget, if the firm gets this 60, the firm is going to pay interest on that of what? 50 for every year. So 50. So at the end of the day, the firm receives just 10 on bonds. I hope you are following. Let's make it big. Now, let's come back to the third one. The third one is the firm goes 20% equity. 20% equity. 20% equity. So if the firm goes 20% equity, then it means that bonds is what? 80%. So 20% equity. It means that from that 1,000 Ghana, they got 200. Then 800 from bonds. And if 800 from bonds, and you are paying 10% as interest rate, then it means that you are going to pay 80 as interest rate. Interest. Now, when you receive, the expected return for the firm is 120 for the year. And out of that, 20% is for equity. So the return on that will be what? 20% of 120 is 24. It's 24. And 80% of that is what? 96. And out of this 96, the firm is going to pay 80 cedis as interest. So the remaining is what? 16 cedis. The remaining is what? 16 cedis. I hope you are following. Some people will be like, okay, if the firm goes 80% bonds, then the firm will receive, out of the 120, the firm will receive 96 return from bond. Then the firm is going to pay 10% of this. No. The firm needs 1,000 Ghana to finance the expenditure. And they decided to go 20% equity. So they raise 20% of that from shares. They sell shares. Now, then they go and borrow, that is bonds, 800. So we borrow 800 bonds. Then they give you interest of what? 10%. So it means that you are going to pay what? 80 Ghana cedis. So if at the end of the day, your return on that is what? 96. You are going to pay 80 cedis. So when you take the 80 cedis from the 96, it gives you what? 16. So we are trying to say that then the return from bond is 16 cedis. Now let's go to the last one. The last one is saying that the firm goes 0% equity. It means that all the money came through bonds. So 1,000 Ghana from bonds. Now it means that all the returns here, return on equity is what? 0. Then bonds will be what? 100%. Then return on bonds. Then if that is the case, now this will be 0, this will be 1,000. Then interest will be what? Interest will be 100. Now, you get 120 at the end of. You get 120 at the end of, quarantine. So they feel like no one is around and we are just talking. So they have to come and see why. What is going on? Now, you go 100% bonds. 0% equity. At the end of the day, the firm receive 120 cedis as profits. All of them goes to the bonds. Now the bonds you receive 120, then you take off 100 Ghana cedis that you are going to pay as interest. Minus 100. Then the remaining will be what? 20. So this is the stream of returns for equity. And this is the stream of what? Returns for bonds. Let me take equity. Equity, when the firm goes 100%, the return on equity is 120. If the firm goes 50% equity, the return is 60. If the firm goes 20% equity, the return is 24. But if the firm goes 0% equity, the return is 0. But when it comes to bonds, 0% bonds gives you 0. 50% bonds gives you 10 cedis. 80% bonds gives you 16. Then 100% bonds gives you 20 cedis. Now, the other part of the question is, find the risk, the equity risk associated with each option. Option 1, option 2, option 3, and option 4. We should find the equity risk associated with that. Now, in monetary accounts, to assess a risk, we use standard deviation to measure the risk of an asset. I will clean it, but I want you to understand this part because you are going to use these figures to do that. keep it in mind. Now let me clean it because the board is small. Let me clean it. Then we continue with that. The figures were 0, 10, 16, 20. The equity, that was 120, 60, 24, and 0. Please, let's keep these figures. Now, we come to risk. How to measure risk of an asset. We use standard deviation. And what is the formula for standard deviation? How do we calculate standard deviation? Standard deviation is equal to summation pi into bracket ri minus r bar. But here we are calculating the equity risk. So it becomes REI minus RE bar all squared. Now let me explain I starting from 1. Let me explain the formulas. The PI represents the probability for that return. Here, RE bar is the mean of that return. The mean return. And the REI is the return of that particular asset. So, when you take equity, the first option was 120, the second was 60, and the third 24, the last 0. So, when you take RE1 is 120, RE2 is 60, RE3 is 24, then RE4 is 0. Now, what is P1? P1, the first option was what? Probability of what? 100. The second is what? 50. The third is what? 20, and the last is 0. Please, this part is very, very important, and I want you to pay attention. Now, let's do the risk for the first option. The first option, in every option, the firm has to make 2 decisions. The first is 1. The first one. The firm will 100% chance of winning 120. Then 0% chance of what? Losing nothing. So what is the mean of this? RE bar is equal to 120 plus 0 divided by 2, which is equal to 60. Please, I hope you are following me. So it means that if I'm to calculate the risk for the first option, so the risk, this symbol represents standard deviation. So the risk for the first option is equal to PI. So here I have 100% chance of winning 120, and R bar here is what? 60 all squared plus 0% of losing what? 0 minus 60 all squared. Because this is 0, this will be what? Will be 0. Now let's come here. 120 minus 60 gives you 60. 60 squared is what? 3,600. Now 100% is 1. So 3,600 times 1 gives you what? 3,600. So the risk for the first one is 3,600. Please, I hope you are following. Okay. Now, I have to clean it. Then we use the same idea to solve for the second one. The formula is still the same, so I won't clean that one. Now, let's take the second one. The second one, the firm have 50% chance of winning 60. That is from the equity. And another 50% chance of losing 60. Because at the end of the day, the firm, the expected return is what? 120. So if you go 50% chance of getting 60, it means that 50% chance of losing another 60. Now, what is the mean of this? That is RE bar is equal to 60 plus minus 60 divided by 2. This is 0. Now, the risk for the second one is equal to 50% into brackets. The first option is what? 60 minus 0 all squared. I hope you are following. Okay. Plus another 50% chance of losing, that is minus 60 minus 0 all squared. Now, 60 minus 0 is 60 all squared is 3,600. Minus 60 minus 0 is minus 60 all squared. All square gives you what? Because of the square, even if to take away the negative, so it still gives you what? 3,600. Here, minus 0.5. This is 0.5. This is 0.5. When you add it, it gives you 1. 1 times this gives you what? 3,600. I hope you are following. Okay. So you see that the risk for the first one is still the same for the second one. That is equity risk. For the first one, it's still the same for the second one. Okay, let's go ahead to find the third and the fourth. So I will clean it. The third one, the firm has 20% chance of winning 24. Then 80% of getting what? So if the firm has 20% chance of winning 24, then 80% chance of losing, that is 96. So let's find the difference. So 24 plus minus 96 divided by 2, that is the RE bar. Please, I hope you are following. So 24 plus minus 96 divided by 2. Then it gives you what? 36 minus 36. 4 here will cancel 3 here. So that will be what? 92. 2 goes away. Then we have what? 72. 72 divided by 2 gives you what? 36. But don't forget it's what? Minus. So now, let's find the risk for the third one. Then this is equal to what? The probability for this one is what? 20%. Into brackets 24 minus 36 plus 80% into bracket minus 96 minus 36 all squared. This gives you 720. Then this gives you 2,880. So when you add everything, it gives you 3,600. So you see that the third one, the risk for the third one is also the same for the first and the second. Let's see if the fourth one will change. That is, the firm goes 0% equity financing. Let's see if that one will change. I hope you are following. It's very, very important. You have to understand how to calculate a risk of an asset. We use the standard deviation to measure the riskiness of an asset. And to go by that, you have to go by this formula. Probability. Then you take the deviation. This is the deviation square. The deviation square times the probability. It gives you the risk. So let's do that for the last one. The last one, 0% of losing everything, then 100%. 0% of getting nothing, then 100% of what? Losing everything. So it means that RE bar is equal to minus 120 plus 0 divided by 2, which gives you minus 60. So risk for that, for the fourth one, is equal to 0% into bracket 0 minus 60 all squared plus 100% into bracket minus 120 minus 60, which is plus 60 all squared. Now because this is 0, this will go away. Now minus 120 plus 60 gives you minus 60. Minus 60 all squared gives you what? 3,600. And this is 100%, which is 1. So it means that this one will also be 3,600. So you see that all the options, the risks are the same. But the last part of the question is, so if let's say you are to advise an investor, someone wants to invest into this organization, and you want to advise the firm. So which financing option will you advise the firm to embark on? Because all the risks are the same. All the risks are the same. So it's up to you. Since all the risks are the same. And you know, so as an economist, you always try to shy away from risky activities. So activity with high standard deviation, you run away from that. But since all the standard deviations are the same, then which one would you recommend for the firm? Decide. Thank you very much for today. Next tutorials will be on financial markets, information asymmetry. We will try to explain more, go into details, know more about moral hazard, adverse selection, how moral hazard and adverse selection affect the financial sector. Then from there, we go and do what? The theory of rational expectation in the efficient market hypothesis.